Well, hello, everybody. This is Old Buck Dale, the Two Old Bucks, and episode 160. And where's the other old buck? Who's with me?
Old Buck Dave is here as usual.
And guess what, Dave? We are very fortunate today.
Yes, we are.
To have someone with us that's going to be with us the entire program today that we've known for a long, long time, and we value her opinion and her thoughts, and we've had a lot of chuckles and laughs, and so we want to welcome Judith to the Old Bucks today. Judith, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Also known as Vintage VV1.
Okay, I was going to say, don't forget to tell us.
That's right. We often refer to you as VV1.
VV1, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, we've interviewed Judith in the past. She was on TV on Jeopardy, among other things. I mean, she's done a lot of other stuff in her life, but that's the one that the most people have seen, I guess.
Yeah.
And actually, folks, a lot of sidebar stuff and maybe some interesting factual stuff that we make mention of. Judith will say, you can also do this, or you could check that. So she's just been a very, very big supporter of the Two Old Bucks. So we said, hey, let's let her hang out. So
absolutely. So
Dave, you have some letters.
Well, we got some letters from afar. We absolutely do. We've got some Pat Hayes feedback. We interviewed Pat Hayes last week, and his book about the microchip world and his life in the microchip world. And so here are a couple of the comments we got back. Truly remarkable, very impressive. This book sounds like it would be a fantastic read. Well, buy the book then, buddy. How's that? Listening to Pat describe the book and his work makes me believe an evening discussion with him would be fantastic. Great choice for an episode. And we had a couple more that, were just like, hey, great, love the guy, that sort of thing. And we got one long feedback letter from Lithuania. This was Valentin, who we interviewed like a long time ago when he was in Russia. And he's a software guy, so he and Pat got in. They went down the rabbit hole on hardware and software. I just stayed out of the way, so that was good. I'm glad that.
Did you hear that one, Judith? Did you catch that episode last week?
Yes, I did.
What do you think of that?
It was okay.
Okay.
We're
not paying her enough.
He was an interesting guy, but it wasn't my favorite episode.
Not your cup of tea. Okay, yeah.
Well, like I said, I had actually read the book, and it was very technical. But as an individual talking to him, he was a fascinating person. I mean, absolutely fascinating to think of all the things he's done and seen.
Yeah, I did get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he'd be a great guy to have coffee with or meet on some other occasion. But if you're interested in that stuff, then we recommend the book. So,
okay.
Did you have another letter? You said
I do. Yeah, I got. We got another letter from Ranger Rick, and I must apologize because I misconstrued his comments when I said that he hated cursive writing. He said, "I am a fan of cursive writing. I am proud of my handwriting." He said, "I worked hard and people compliment me on my handwriting." So he says, I've got nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with cursive for me. So I guess it was just me projecting my hate for cursive. So I'm sorry, Rick, but I still hate it. What do you think, Judith? How about what's your take on cursive?
Well, I like cursive, but I find I don't use it as much as I used to, and that my handwriting has greatly deteriorated. And I spent some time with friends last week, and they were going on about the glories of cursive, and I thought, maybe I should sit down and start practicing again, because I don't want to lose it entirely, and I feel like a slacker compared to them when it came to writing. So,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, Hey, Judith, why did you evolve to the other type? Was it something more clear, or is it, I mean, why did you?
I think I started printing a lot because of handwriting forms, and also I always use block letters, like if I'm addressing an envelope by hand, because I figure the machines are reading it now. And do the machines read cursive? I don't know. So
Yeah,
I, doing things, it's just probably just laziness,
laziness.
but
Yeah.
I do think cursive is beautiful, and I know. So I think in my retirement years, I'm going to start practicing my cursive again to get better again.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I am not. I am not going to do that.
And I'm also
Uh,
right-handed. I sympathize with you.
okay.
'Cause
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
my best friend is a lefty, so I
Yeah.
think it wasn't designed for left-handed people for sure.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. And we've got another letter here from a listener named Judith, who talked about movie trailers, and maybe, and since we
Maybe
have a
that would be
Judith
you.
with us, maybe that would be you.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, talk to us. Talk to us.
Well, it seems like, in the old days, when we were young, you went to a movie and you saw the trailer, and it would give you just little glimpses of scenes, and you go, "Oh my, I wonder what happened after that." And it made you want to see the movie. But I feel like trailers now pretty much tell the whole story. And I can't tell you how many movies I have not gone to because at the end of the trailer, I said, well, I know what happens, and maybe
Hmm.
there'd be some wonderful acting or beautiful scenery or something else, but I basically know the whole story. So why would I go to see this film? And I think filmmakers have really gotten sloppy in the way they do their trailers. And
I,
and in fact, if there's a movie that I've heard a lot about that I think I want to see, I will make a point of not looking at the trailers because I want to go and be surprised.
that's a good point. Yeah, I agree with you. You watch 2, 3 trailers, it's like, okay, I saved $20, but
Right.
I'm not going to see that movie. I already know
Exactly.
what happens. Yeah. What about
Well,
you, Mr. Dell? What are
well,
you
actually,
burning issue here?
I agree in a sense that it it sorts out pretty quickly what you want to go see. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I probably would have spent my $13 or something to see a movie if I was somehow hooked on the trailer. But if you watch 6 trailers and you think, I don't want to see any of those, and you watch another trailer, even though they're maybe similar in style, you'll go see that movie. So I could have went 6 times if I hadn't been so thoroughly explained about the movie. So you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's like,
I get, yeah.
I mean, I sat through Oppenheimer.
You did. We both did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
So
Judith. Did you get to see Oppenheimer yet?
No, I haven't. Just for lack of time. I think it's one I would like to see, and I think it's still playing around here. So maybe I will
Hmm.
do that in the next week or so.
Yeah, I recommend it. Recommend it for sure. Dale, you sent in
oh,
one of your cryptic notes to us.
well, I'm
You
I'm
said
glad Judith is around. She can voice an opinion on this. There was an article in a local paper about a whale. You know, how's that pronounced? It's not a crustacean, cetacean. What is that? Cetacean. I'm trying to think. There's a to describe the creatures that live underwater or live in the water,
mammal?
but they
No.
no, it wasn't it.
Okay.
But anyhow, it's a whale. It's called Rice's whale, and there's not very many of them, and they're in the Gulf of Mexico. And the article was, if you can slow the ship traffic down or uh, somehow let people know they're in an area where these whales are living, you could avoid hitting them, which is the biggest cause of their demise. They get hit by boats. That would be a good thing. And I kind of thought to myself, you know, I'd I'd like to see that species survive. You know, what I mean, it was like it's.
Hmm.
I would not want to see it go extinct. But the argument was from the various players around the Gulf and ports and things. They said, no, that's going to hinder too much commerce. We don't want a rule like that. We're going to let it. We're going to have to keep going and hope for the best. So sometimes Dave and I play a little game where I ask him a silly question, and the question I was going to ask both of you is it if you had to sacrifice a species, I mean, if you said, okay, I'm going to sacrifice a species, which one would you do? And
Judith, you want to go first on this?
Any type of snake.
Any type of snake.
Okay, all right.
Unlike
Well,
Indiana Jones, no snakes.
No, snakes.
okay, so now we have an opinion, but the point was that Dave threw. What did you say, Dave? You said or off the top of your head when I mentioned that to you earlier. What did you say?
Florida presidential candidates?
No, you said bats.
Bats, I said. No,
Yeah,
I didn't say bats. I said mosquitoes.
Oh, you said mosquitoes, and I said, what are the bats going to eat?
Yeah,
and as you Google these things,
yeah, you got me going there.
Every species you Google, you find it somehow fits into this whole scheme of things. It does something. It's there. And I said to myself, so if you had to eliminate one species, you'd have to think quite a bit about it, because maybe that's the one that does the pollinating. Maybe that's the one that keeps the algae down. They say without enough whales, the plankton could overwhelm the ocean to the extent that it could, affect the algae and stuff like that. So anyhow, in our lifetime, we may live to see yet a few more species disappear, but I just felt bad about it personally.
Well, here's what, I just really don't like mosquitoes. They like me a lot. Okay. I'm the one they go to first for whatever reason, blood type, or, you read the various things, whether your blood vessels are close to the skin or you sweat a lot. Well, those are all true for me, I guess. But did you know, I had to go down the rabbit hole on this, once you threw the challenge out there, that in 2020, malaria had 241 million clinical episodes. 241 million. 627,000 deaths.
So what are you saying the purpose of mosquitoes is? I'm reading between the lines here.
Well, I don't know, population control maybe. I mean, yeah, but you're right. They, as I read further, they do pollinate. They're a pollinator. They're feed for
a lot of birds and bats,
mammals on the food chain. Yeah. And not all mosquitoes actually are biters or bite humans. I guess like 80% of them don't. But of the ones that do, who does bite? It's the females. It's the females.
They bite. They bite.
Said the males are too stupid to bite or something. I was reading it, really. So I don't know.
Well, let's hope the best for the whales, Dave. And
let's hope the best for the whales.
And there is no species that has to be extinct anymore than in our time.
Other than snakes, maybe. Other than snakes.
No, they'll be around too. I mean, we might have to like them, but what would we do without them? The little black snakes we have around here in Florida they're a big, they're a necessity. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd be overrun with geckos.
Geckos and mice. Yeah.
Hey,
it's true.
I'll leave that go. But I have something else that you two may find interesting. The other day, I went to my. This is a health issue. I've got to think about the health system in America. So
do I ever? Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. So I went to the old GP and I walked in there and I said, "Yeah, you're scheduled." And I said, "Oh, by the way, you owe us money." I said, "What?" I said, I looked right at the girl over the glass and I said, "I don't owe you money. I never owe you money. There's no reason I should owe you money."
Tell me you didn't lay down on the floor until they tore up the bill.
No, that tactic
that would be lie down on the floor, I guess.
That
Sorry,
tactic
Judith.
is only to get waited on when you're in a crowded waiting room. You do that.
Okay.
So, I went through the procedure. I went through there and I left, and she said, "Okay, I will check into that for you, sir." And I left. So about a week or two later, I get like a monthly report from all my health activities by my insurance people. And sure enough, they listed a few coins that I owe my GP. And I looked at that and I said, well, why did they not pay that? This is what happened, Dave, Judith. The doctor invested in some technology to do it like an electrocardiogram on you via his phone. Now, you've seen those home tests. You can put your finger on something, it'll give you a reading. You familiar with them?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at him that day, or this last time, I noticed that he had a very strange stethoscope. It wasn't just a standard stethoscope. This thing really looked like a piece of machinery. And wouldn't you know, he takes that, sticks it in his ears on one side, and he puts it up against my chest and starts moving around. And a few minutes later, he comes back with a printout of my heart. I said, oh,
Wow.
yeah. I said,
Yeah.
man, you guys are really stepping up and your technology and everything. So I let that go and I walked out. Well, it turns out that procedure was not covered by my insurance because it didn't require an additional 5 or 6 electrodes. Okay.
Wow.
And my point is this: I said, if I have to go there and everything he does, I said, does my insurance cover that? You sure you want to do that? How much is this going to cost? And second guessing him, I mean, what a risk you run when you don't know what it's going to cost. You know what I mean? Well, how this, what you're going to get billed for later. I said, if you'd have told me this was a $20 copay because you were trying to get something done quicker to expedite things, and do I want it or don't I want it? I said, that would be different. So I've yet to be billed on that because I really kicked up a fuss on that today.
So you have so you had a more effective procedure, a streamlined procedure.
Yeah.
Less invasiveness, less, fewer chest hairs shaved away.
And he's even looking for a problem. He's checking for a problem.
Wow.
If he found that problem, that would have set me off on another wild goose chase on another, 100 more tests. But he didn't find that problem. He says, no, so far you're looking good. But I'm just letting people know that with the new technology, I don't think the insurance that we carry, or maybe in Advantage plans and stuff like that, they're not coming up following with it. So have you two run into that? Anything like that happen to you, Judith?
No, but I know that my dentist, before they do any procedure other than like cleaning, they come and tell you exactly what it's going to cost. And I think it's for reasons like that, that there's a lot that dental insurance doesn't cover. So maybe we should ask the same thing of our doctors, because I know I got the RSV vaccination this week, and before they gave me that, they said, we'll check and make sure this is covered by your insurance. So maybe that's the key, is just ask them to check. They have to know that.
Well, I'll do that from now on, but just let everybody know that as the technology changes, sometimes you get surprised later on, and it's always about a month and a half later. You forgot why I was even there.
Yeah,
and you get this bill or something like that.
Speaking of the whole dentistry thing, Judith, that's interesting, because I just had my teeth cleaned this week. Of course, they find something. So, well, you got one crown here. It's all chipped up and da 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 da. And I said, you don't really need, we can replace it, or it's up to you. We don't have to. He said, we'll give you a quote on it before you go. So, once I got my cleaning done, they had a printout ready, and I said, this is the tooth. This is what we want to do. This is going to be the cost. And then they asked me to sign it. So I signed. So, they're covered. They're covered, that I recognized or agreed that was the price of that procedure, and I would pay it.
So are you going to do it?
I'm not going to do it at this point. No, I'm going to wait till I'm far away, like I usually do, and then the tooth will crack. We've been down that road. But
I'm laughing because I know how long you waited for the.
Yes.
I know how long you waited the day you actually showed me the piece of tooth that came out of your mouth. I said, "Did you ever fix that?" You said, "No, I didn't fix that yet."
Yeah, there were 2 cracked by the time I finally went.
Yeah, and then you stuck your tongue on it for the next 2 weeks and blame me for starting it.
I'll show him. Dummy. Hey, speaking of RSV, Judith, I've got an RSV story. This was kind of bizarre. Last week, my wife and I went to the local pharmacy, to get the RSV shot. And the pharmacy will remain unnamed at this point, okay? So we filled out the paperwork, and I went first. And so I'm sitting down there, and he's prepping everything and getting his needle out and his cotton swab and all that sort of thing. And my wife said, well, she said, by the way, which COVID vaccine are you guys dispensing now? And he said, oh, we do the Pfizer now. And she said, oh, we had Moderna before. And he said, well, they're all the same. This is a pharmacist talking. They're all the same. I said, okay, you mean like they're all effective, the same effective? And he says, well, and my wife said, well, we got COVID. We were pretty sick. And he said, yeah, and you probably had two or three shots, didn't you? And then he said, I've gotten no shots. I've gotten no COVID vaccinations, and I got COVID. He said, and I had a headache for a day, and that was it, nothing else. And I said, that's because you're young and we're old. Okay. I was getting a little cranked off at this point. Like here's a pharmacist telling me about, lecturing me on. And then he said, well, the mRNA vaccines are not real vaccines. He said, you got COVID anyway, right? He says, they're neutral. They don't do anything. And I can't believe I'm hearing this. And I said, no, I'm sorry. I disagree. They build antibodies and that's what made me sick. And he said, no. And then he used some excuse. He said, well, back in the 1800s, they gave some kind of treatment that I forget to people they thought was creating an immunity, and the people got sick. And he said, it wasn't building immunity. It was a poison. And I thought, oh man. I said, we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one. And then he gave me the shot, man. He drove that needle straight to the bone. I swear.
I was going to say, you were angering the guy holding the needle.
That was a big mistake. Yeah, he had the sharp object, and I was ticking him off. Well, he's ticking me off. I was shocked that he talked that way. I'm not going to report him to his boss, but I thought that was just a real bizarre episode.
All I can say is, you know what you want, and if you believe it works, it works.
I believe it works.
Yeah, I had COVID recently too, and I anything that's going to prevent, even if it means I get it, but I'm going to survive. I'm still getting the boosters and everything. I never want to feel that bad again.
I'm with you. Yeah.
My thoughts exactly. I was even thinking about that, Judith. I said, boy, this thing's going to be around for a while. I don't know how many times I want to go through this thing. You know what I mean? How many every year you're going to get beat up like that? You think, how many times can you take that before one day you just can't catch your breath again? So
yeah.
Hey, we have time for a book review. I heard Judith.
We do. Yeah, we didn't just invite her on to brighten up the episode.
Yeah.
We're going to put her to work.
Yeah. All right, lower to Judith.
Judith, you have a book that you read and enjoyed, and you've agreed to share it with the listeners here. So take it away, Judith.
I rejoined a book club recently, and this was their choice for the month of November. So the title is The Splendid and the Vile, subtitled A Saga of Churchill, Family, and Defiance During the Blitz. And the author is Eric, with a K, Larson. And it's really a fascinating book because it deals with the time in England before the United States got into the war. And even though you know how it ends, it reads like a novel. And it deals with of course, what was going on in terms of the bombings and the attack on Britain and everything, but also the behind the scenes, the little romances and the everyday life. And it's based on diaries and letters and materials that were formerly classified that are now available. So I think it's a pretty good book in terms of being truthful. It also presents a little bit of the other side based on things that were recovered from Germany and diaries and things like that. And so it reads like a novel. It's fascinating. I mean, I just love the book, but also it reminds us of what life was like before the internet, where Hitler sends a letter to a guy in Scotland that he think might be sympathetic to his cause and assumes it will be delivered. And of course, the censors got a hold of it, and the guy never got the letter, and Hitler's wondering, why didn't I get an answer?
Oh,
Things like that. And then
Ah,
traveling by ship instead of by plane, and how dangerous that would have been, but they did it anyway. And, it was just really a fascinating read. It also gave me a lot of sympathy for what my parents must have gone through living during that time. Now, they didn't live in England, but I think about, my parents getting married during the war, not living together for 2 years because dad was in the army. And I remember saying to my mother once, well, like, why did you elope? Because why didn't you have a nice traditional wedding and, or do it that way? And she said, well, it was wartime and everything was a little crazy. And now I get that, I mean,
uh-huh.
she might have never seen him again. She didn't know if he was coming back or not. And then the pressures that must have put on a lot of people who's, got married during that time and but didn't have the experience of being together for several years. So it was just a wonderful picture for me of what life was like and how desperate the situation was. That if the United States has not gotten into the war, there's no way England could have held out, although they were determined to hold out during the end. And Hitler kept sending messages to his cohort saying, why don't they just give up? Why don't they just sign a peace treaty with me? He really couldn't understand why the English wouldn't give up. So it's a fascinating read. I would recommend it to anyone. I think maybe even people of our generation who didn't live through the war but had parents who did. It'll give you a picture of what life must have been like for them too. So
All
highly
right.
recommend it.
Splendid in the Vial by Eric
Hmm.
Larson.
Hmm.
Well, okay, great. That sounds like a good read. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. And folks, I implore you to read the show notes. We put some effort into the show notes and put links to a lot of things. We had one listener said, sometimes the show notes are better than the podcast itself. So
You can read that quickly and go right to the options you like and have to listen to us.
I guess I have to take that as a compliment, but anyway.
Hey, Judith, just as a backstory to that, I also read that book and I enjoyed it as a novel, a fascinating story. The production of the airplanes and the difficulty they had, producing things in a wartime situation, and how he said, we're going to make these airplanes, and he put guys in charge to get this thing done. So it's a great read, and it's not like a war story. It's like it reads more like a novel. So I agree 100%. If you get a chance to read that, folks, go ahead and read it.
And somebody else talked about that as well. I mentioned this to my wife this morning. I said, yeah, Judith's going to talk about Splendid in the Vial. She says, oh, great book. I read that. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you were the one that recommended it to me. My wife recommended this to me some time ago, I recall.
Yeah, it came out in 2020. It's not a new book.
Okay, yeah. Hey, so yeah, that was a recommended book. And speaking of recommended books, let's talk about what's coming up next couple of weeks of the 2 Old Bucks. Next week, we will have an interview with Agnes Schipper. We've mentioned her book before. The book is Sabina's Odyssey, A Hidden Child and Her Dutch Rescuers. Okay, now this is a memoir that she's written, that Agnes has written. It's really a story about her mother as a young girl being moved around Europe during World War II to stay 2 steps ahead of the Nazis. It's meticulously researched. Her mother actually started this journey, this exploration, and she picked it up from her mother. The cover is a picture of her mother as a young girl with her uncle, her mother's brother, who unfortunately the Nazis did arrest and put him in a concentration camp, and he died there. So it's, as I say, it's really a meticulously researched book, and I learned a lot more about the whole episode of Jewish people and what they went through during this time, as well as another history lesson on World War II and what it was like to be in Europe at that time. So we're looking forward to that. She and Dell have tangled a little bit already. So
no.
No.
Well, we met her in person, and I thought she was a very interesting.
You complimented her.
Yeah,
you complimented. Okay, so leave it at that. Hey, and scheduled for the following week, that's the tentatively that'll go live December 8th. We're going to be interviewing Stan Gordon, who's done a lot of research on UFOs. He's done a lot of look at the Kecksburg UFO and Bigfoot sightings. So I think this will be an interesting episode. I'm not sure I'm going to agree with everything he says, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a different viewpoint on the world. And hey, maybe we will agree on everything. Now, I think, Judith, you know this fellow, don't you?
Yeah, I met him because he did a thing, I think it was on the Sci-Fi Channel about the Kecksburg incident. And my husband was actually one of the people he interviewed. Now, Bob wasn't, he was on the state police during that time. He wasn't one of the ones who was sent there, but a friend of his was. And so he shared a story that a friend of his had told. And I think Stan came to our house once. So yeah, he's an interesting fellow.
Okay.
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 But he's made, like, this is his whole life, the UFO stuff. That's it.
Okay.
So he's a little different, but
he's a little different. That's what we want. We want some different people on here.
He'll be interesting for the.
It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be boring. No, that's good.
No.
That's good. Yeah, I've read some of his stuff, and he's controversial, and so yeah, it should be fun. The following week, December 15th, approximately, we'll be interviewing Tim Smith, who's the author of Behind the Hedgerows, which is a fictional look at the Hamptons in the 80s, the rich people and the not so rich people, the poor people, and some events that take place in this during this time period. So I think it should be fun. It should be a good listen, and I think the book is a good read. We're going to be reading that. It's on my list here. So that's what's coming up.
Some of these authors we met in person and as individuals, I thought they were just pretty cool. They all have dynamic personalities. So look forward to that. We about out of time, Dave?
We are about out of time, unless you have something special you want to tell us.
No, I'm good to go. I'm really happy that Judith was able to join us today. We look forward to her stopping in anytime she feels she can. Her thoughts are always appreciated. And otherwise, this is old Buck Dell saying to our listeners out there, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
And this is old Buck Dave saying the same thing. Send your cards and letters in, folks. Our email's at the bottom of the show notes, and you can also use the Speak Pipe, which is the world's easiest voicemail system.
And Vintage Vixen 1 signing off.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.